Welcome, everybody. I am Ruben, and you are listening to After the Master, a weekly podcast in which I talk to people primarily from the international student community who have recently earned a master's degree from globally leading programs and are now on the path to achieving their professional goals. My guests delve into their experiences and highlight their mistakes, learnings, and realizations, which I am sure will help you move closer to your career goals. I post a new episode every week, so please subscribe to receive updates. If you would like to listen to this episode, please see the description for a link to your favorite app and stick around till the end to gain as much as possible. I would love to hear from you, so please connect with me through the link in the description. In this episode, Samitha talks about how she began her master's exploring the potential of integrating sustainability and chemical engineering, and this exploratory path led to an interesting project with the intention of establishing a startup. However, she found her place in improving the efficiency of passenger and freight transportation in India with a non-profit and a leading think tank in the US. She holds a dual master's from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor.
Okay. Hi, good morning, Samhita, or good evening to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be on my show. I know that your career has been very, very lively, the trajectory has been really nice. And I'm sure people would love to know a lot about your experiences over the past 4 or 5 years. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. So to begin with, can you give a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Samhita Shiledar. I am currently working as a manager with an organization called RMI. We are a think tank who work in the field of energy efficiency, and I'm working here since last 5 years. Prior to this, I studied at University of Michigan with Ruben actually, and I did masters in sustainable energy systems, and I also did masters in chemical engineering. Prior to that, I was a chemical engineer and I was managing 23 production plants for Pidilite Industries. And before that, I had done chemical engineering from VNIT, so in IT Nagpur. So that's like a quick snapshot of my career so far.
So when you were in VNIT, did you have any plans of going to the US at some point?
I was going back and forth a lot. I did not really have any plans in terms of doing energy systems related studies, but I was thinking of MBA at that particular point of time.
Okay.
And I was just because I didn't know better, frankly. And then when I was working with Pidilite Industries, I remember there was one of these exercises that I had, where I also had to make sure that all of the companies are meeting with the factory and environmental laws. And it was just a very small piece of work that I had to do, and it was probably like 10% of my overall job responsibilities. But that is when I got to know about the entire world of industrial sustainability. And that's when I realized that, okay, this is something that I am passionate about. And instead of just sticking to doing a master's in chemical engineering or doing MBA, I really wanted to balance that with the entire aspect of sustainability as well, which is when I thought of looking for masters. Could not really find a lot of universities which were in India that were providing a course that I wanted to. And University of Michigan really kind of matched with all of my interests because it had that option of doing two masters at the same time to understand the entire ecosystem. And then most of the schools in the US also let you customize your course a lot. So I took a lot of finance related courses while I was studying. So that's how I could like get best of all of the worlds. And that option really struck me.
Right. And so it was clear that the work that you were doing at Pidilite that kind of led you on the path, even though it was a small portion, on the path of sustainability, because it was such a small part of your work, the compliances, environmental compliances related stuff. What was your perception like about the industry in the US or in some other country at that point? Like, were you planning to, switch to a role that was entirely related to industrial sustainability at that point, or were you just kind of exploring this as an option?
Uh, I mean, right now I'm not really working much on industrial sustainability. So I think
Mhm.
it's almost like throughout the whole process, you kind of learn about the entire ecosystem. Like when I was in VNIT, for me, environmental studies was just like one of the, how many, I think, what, 50, 60
Mm.
courses that I
Yeah.
did. And it was just one elective, and I had an option to pick from the suite of like 5, 6 courses. That's it. That is
Mm.
what environmental studies was for me.
Mm.
And the entire chemical engineering was more about, like thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, and all of that. But then as I grew into like working with corporates, that kind of opened my eyes to the world of industrial sustainability. Then when I joined University of Michigan, that is when I really learned most about energy systems in general. And I remember there was a time when I was also like thinking about looking at energy water nexus rather than
Mm.
just focusing on energy. But then I personally wanted to specialize in one aspect rather than looking at so many things. And then when I started working with RMI, we work in the field of all of the energy and use cases. So this includes industry, transportation, electricity, buildings. But then I picked transportation. And
Mm.
now I'm like focusing on freight transportation, to be specific, as part of the entire chain.
Yeah.
But now freight relates a lot, like supply chain relates a lot back to industry. So I feel like it's kind of a full circle for me.
Excellent. And going back to when you were, applying to programs, you said that the option of doing 2 degrees, the dual degree option kind of interested you a lot. But can you elaborate a little bit more on why you wanted to, take up a dual degree program? Like, was it so that, you had the option of, say, continuing working as a chemical engineer, or was it to bring that chemical engineering aspect into industrial sustainability when you were applying?
It was actually vice versa. I wanted to bring the sustainability aspect to chemical engineering,
I
but
see.
I ended up liking the overall energy aspect more. And that's why after graduating, I was more gravitated towards work that was more about sustainability. Because I
Hmm.
remember when I was graduating, the top 2 choices that I had, one was this organization, RMI, that I'm working with right now. And the other organization was completely about plant design. And
Mm.
I could have gone the other way around as well, but I personally like this route more. So the entire motivation behind going for 2 degrees was actually to supplement the chemical engineering related aspect to sustainability. Because like growing up, you see a lot of like you just see so many impacts of industrialization in general
Mm.
around you, but you never think about that sustainability aspect. Like I did not think about that sustainability aspect when I was growing up and when I was little. So that is why I wanted to supplement that
Mhm.
rather than the other way around.
Just a quick word, if you are planning to apply to graduate programs abroad, I offer several services and I am working on a bunch of resources to help you breeze through the applications process. You'll find all of these on my website rbnedu.com, and links have been provided in the description. All right, back to the episode.
Okay, so when you started your masters or your dual masters, did you have any like focus role or industry, from the starting, or were you trying to just explore options, opportunities during probably the first couple of semesters?
I was uh, I was just exploring all of the options. I took a lot of courses that were about the entire energy systems. We also had some compulsory courses that were about ecology, which was your specialization, and I really loved that aspect as well. So I think just having that flexibility to really learn a lot and then deciding where you want to focus in was something that I personally liked a lot. And throughout my internship was the time when I started working on transportation sector much more in depth, but I never really formally took classes that were particular about transportation system. So I was always looking for more broad level classes.
Right. And your internship, which was between the first and second year, the summer between the first and second year, did you get that? How did you approach the, the process of finding an internship or getting to know companies? What was your experience like, and what did you do?
Yeah, so I was definitely new to the entire hiring system in the US at that time. In India, at least in IT Nagpur, we did not really have career fair as such, but like companies would come one by one and then you would apply. Versus in the US, it was more like all of the companies would come at the same time, and then you also have to do a lot of job search through LinkedIn. Um, Personally, for me, touchwood, it just the process was relatively. I again my focus getting into until masters, my focus was a lot on really specializing in the field of sustainability. But when I joined University of Michigan, I kind of knew that I just do not know enough to be able to select one particular sector within energy systems as such. So I was looking for internships that were more at a broader scale. And the internship, I actually interned with the same organization that I'm working with right now. And the role was really interesting, where I had to work with our founder of our organization on developing new programs. So I just felt like that the whole position really resonated well with me, because I was open for new challenges and just wanted to keep things at a broader level. And that is how I decided to apply for this particular position. And I also had applied to a few other places that were more focused on water related aspect of the entire ecosystem, but I was glad this worked out.
Excellent. And you also, like after the internship, you continued working, right? During the following couple of semesters, you were working part-time with RMI, and eventually you again joined them as a full-time employee. So what was your experience like during those 2 semesters? You were doing 2 degrees, you were working part-time with RMI, and also, I mean, with the coursework there comes other projects and stuff like that. So how did you cope with all of that during the second year?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you know how I coped with all of that because you're also there. I think my first three, the way I had approached the whole thing was I really kind of front loaded all of my courses into first 3 semesters. And then in the final semester, I just wanted to, uh, I had planned to keep a lot of time free in order to focus on one of the startups also that I was building side by side. So I took a lot of courses. Like, just for reference, average number of credits that most of the people at University of Michigan from, say, College of Engineering would take was 9 to 12, because say masters is like 30 credits in 4 years, so it all averages down to somewhere between 9 to 12 credits per semester. I took between 15 to 20 credits for first 2 semesters, and I took above 20 credits. I think it was like 22 for the
23.
third semester.
Yeah.
23 credits or something like that. And I had remember filling a form for, like
Yeah.
exception, because I really wanted to finish my course in 3 semesters and also like pay part-time fees in the fourth semester. That was definitely one of the motivations. And also another motivation was to just explore rest of the things. So I would say it was just super busy, because on top of, especially in the third, fourth semester, second and third semester, frankly, I was also working a lot on developing an idea for a startup with a few of my friends. And we were part of several incubator programs, which frankly is like a 2 3 credit course in itself. So we were part of a couple of incubators. And in the third and fourth semester, I also worked part time while I worked as a contractor. So check with your university, but usually you're allowed to work for 20 hours when you're part-time, and then you get 20 additional hours of CPT as a contractor. So my third semester I worked for 20 hours during all of my semesters, which was like part-time, that like that everyone can apply to. I was grader. I was doing research, like research assistantship in some of the semesters. So in the third semester, on top of that, I was working 20
Yeah.
hours as a contractor with RMI only. And then I wanted to continue the work that I had started during my internship. And eventually I wanted to work with RMI full time as well. So I think that was almost like a segue for me to continue developing the work and also eventually apply for full-time job with RMI.
You brought up a very interesting and unique point about being part of a startup and incubator programs during the masters. I think because like everybody now wants to join a startup or become the next unicorn and all that. So what was your experience like? Like, were you considering joining the startup, your startup, or taking it forward full time after the masters? And if yes, what would your advice be to people who have that kind of an aspiration, but are they hesitate because maybe it's a major step and will it work out or whatnot? So can you talk a little bit about your startup phase?
Yeah, so we really started that particular, I still want to call it like a research project because we never like officially legally ended up setting a startup, but at the same time we worked with a lot of so our startup is or our research project is called Cherubu, and we got a lot of grants through University of Michigan and beyond as well as part of this particular idea. And we seriously thought about converting this into like a full-fledged company and joining like working on it full time rather than joining, working on it full time. I would say like the main thing is, number one, if you have a great idea, there are just so many resources within the entire university ecosystem that uh, that you can take advantage of. So personally, for me, for example, the idea literally just started as a class project for few of my friends who were couple of who joined University of Michigan a couple of years before me, and then I just started working with them when I joined University of Michigan, and then we started applying to different research grants in order to keeping on working on that particular idea. And we gave farm specific nutrient management advice to small farmers. So then we started testing this idea and eventually started seeing a really good potential in terms of converting this into business. So we worked with almost 3,600 farmers, and later started thinking about converting this particular research project really into a startup, and for which we worked a lot with different incubators in order to understand everything, right from how the legalities work and how like what should be our strategy in terms of pricing, what should be our strategy in terms of marketing, and so on. However, after graduating, we realized that there are a lot more legal complications involved with the whole ecosystem. So I would say definitely start growing that particular idea while you're in grad school. And then, depending on what you want to do, either just hire a lawyer, start your own company and work full time with it, or depending on whatever your interests are, you can go for one path or the other. But the main thing that I want to highlight here is just that university has a lot of resources. Like we were part of several incubators. We took part in different competitions at University of Michigan. We had this competition called M Tank, which was a Shark Tank version of University of Michigan, for example. We won grants um, through different kind of interdisciplinary sustainability grants offered by Dow, and we got almost $100,000 through that. Then we also were awarded by National Geographic Channel as one of the best innovative ideas in the field of sustainability for one of the years. So there are just so many resources that university has to offer, and all do is just get outside the classroom as well, rather than just focusing on your regular classwork,
Yeah.
and really try to apply your knowledge outside textbooks. And I was, frankly, I was really surprised that relatively very few people were part of that entire startup or entire innovation circle at University of Michigan as well. Like, I remember seeing pretty much same people at all of the different competitions, especially in terms of sustainability. Like, it was like few people that we knew that would always be, like constant faces that I'll keep on seeing. So that is something that I was a little surprised by, that not as many people were getting outside their comfort zone and were looking for opportunities outside. So just for anyone who is watching, I definitely just want to highlight that if you have any aspirations like that, there are just so many opportunities to make it happen. That definitely look beyond, like take classes outside your curriculum, take like be part of different groups, be part of different like extracurricular activities that are happening outside. There are so many different clubs that you can be part of, and that is the way to get to know about all of these things that are happening. So you definitely have to take a lot of effort. It will consume a lot of time and energy, but that is what grad schools are for, to learn. So I think this is like, just try to expand your horizon by just talking to more people when you're at grad school.
Yeah, yeah. And I think in your case, a good business school, Ross is one of the probably one of the most well-known business schools in the US and in the world. And having access to Ross and the resources that Ross and some other departments in the university provided uh, helped a lot. So probably those who are in universities where the business school is pretty big and well known attracts funding from others, outsiders, or alumni in that case might really be helpful. But I want to touch upon that ideation aspect of it. I mean, I think you mentioned that the idea for Cheruvu came from a class course project. And it is, after all, the idea that you build upon and take forward. So, in that process of taking forward the idea, was it just the group of your group that worked on it, or did you take help from, say, faculty in the US or people back in India, who were working on probably related projects here? So how did that work out?
Yeah, we had a couple of advisors from who had a lot of background with respect to sustainability and finance. We also worked with few of the professors who were working in India, because we were looking at small farmers in India. And we just kept on taking help from a lot of professors. Like, if one of us has had an interesting class about, say, green economy, we would just chat with the professor to understand the application in terms of the work that we were doing, and so on. So definitely took a lot of guidance from all of the professors that were present.
Do you think the startup work that you did, the involvement? I mean, you were at the forefront of it, not at the background, right? You and a couple of others were pretty much on it all the time. So, do you think that kind of helped you in the work that you were doing for RMI also? I mean, not technically, or probably even technically, but also the kind of, say, pitching an idea and working with, say, investors or people interested to take that idea forward. So, were there things that were transferable to the work that you were doing at RMI?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, we never ever ended up formally establishing the idea as like a company, but while learning how to do, like if we were to set up a company, what exactly we'll have to do, or if we were to convert an idea into reality. We just went through whole process through like different incubators, and just by being there, present while converting this idea, and then finally working with 3,600 farmers. So I think that there was no direct knowledge transfer in terms of the work that I was doing there, or the experience that I got, because it was more about the farming ecosystem versus right now I'm working on transportation. But there were just a lot of learnings in terms of making things happen. Like first, the main learning was just in terms of managing time, in terms of how to do like in terms of systems thinking. I feel like I learned a lot, which is like a skill that you can keep on practicing at different levels. Like how do you like for example, when we were thinking about farming, initially we were only thinking about farmers, and I personally was looking at the whole problem as like a chemistry problem, that okay, this is how the soil is, this is what you need to add so that you'll get the optimum output.
Yeah.
At the same time, it had so many social component, it had so many economic components, it had so many finance and business related components, that is the first time when I had created like a complete entire ecosystem map. That, and just having gone through that process definitely has helped me to understand any of the transportation related challenges also right now, like rather than focusing on, I work a lot on electric vehicles, so rather than focusing purely on electric vehicle technology, which otherwise I was doing as part of the entire Cheru related aspect as well, like just thinking about financing component, thinking about charging infrastructure related component, thinking about policy component. I think that entire the main skill that I learned was thinking about the whole ecosystem and thinking about multiple stakeholders. And of course, pitching was definitely helpful in terms of convincing any of the stakeholders that for like going for decarbonization related strategies as part of their business. So I think whenever I talk to any stakeholders, definitely that entire practice in terms of pitching the idea of Cheru, applying for different grants, it definitely has helped in order to learn some of those skills.
So we'll step away a little bit from the startup Cheruhu part and back to your your work at RMI. So for those looking to get into say sustainable mobility or sustainable energy, what would your advice be to aspirants about approaching companies or approaching the search for jobs as such?
I personally am a, just like a big fan of being genuine. Like I
Mhm.
feel like you it's almost like you have to make sure that the company's mission aligns with you and your mission aligns with the company. It's not like a one-way relationship that you usually have with the organization. And if it is, then you always look at your job just as a job, and as a list of roles and responsibilities. Personally, I feel like uh, the way in terms of job hunting just has to be being genuinely looking at what are important things for you in terms of your near term future, and what is your long term vision, and how exact company, like how different companies that you're applying to are going to fit into that larger vision, and how like their mission is going to align with your immediate mission as well. So I think definitely, like I personally feel like you just have to be genuinely interested rather than just applying for the sake of applying. And when you are genuinely interested, genuinely passionate, that reflects in your resume, in your cover letter as part of your interview. And more than anything, especially these days, like companies are looking for employees, and companies are looking for people that are interested in working and who are going to go above and beyond in terms of their work rather than anything else. So my only tip is going to be just like be genuine in terms of the companies that you apply to, and also just be genuine throughout the entire process. It has to work for you, it has to work for the company both, and interview is just a process of testing that. So just be authentic throughout the whole process.
100%. I completely agree with what you said. And even when I work with clients now, I try to, tell them that when you're looking for programs, universities, that there has to be a strong two-way relationship that you can envision. You have to really like, and it has to match with what you want to do, and vice versa also. One point that a lot of people are generally wonder about, in especially given an emerging industry which is on the way to being a pretty widespread and well established industry in the very near future, I would say. What kind of pay can fresh graduates, fresh masters graduates expect from a role in, say, sustainability or sustainable transport mobility, from your experience?
So in terms of pay, it really varies, right? Like you can work with, it depends on what you're planning on doing. You can make six figures immediately after graduating as well. So like maybe just stepping back, if particularly if you are in the field of energy and sustainability, then the kind of options that you have after graduating are, you can either join any of the government's related bodies. Second option is joining think tanks, civil society. You
Mhm.
can also join consulting companies, any of the big consulting companies. You can join startups. You can join sustainability division of any of the companies, like like any of the say, you can join sustainability division of Amazon to Google to PepsiCo, whatever you
Yeah,
want.
yeah,
Like I'm not promoting one company versus the other, but these, especially in 2022, sustainability has such a big focus that you are just going to see a lot of jobs, and depending on what you want to do, whether you want to work with private sector, whether you want to work with public sector, um, whether you want to focus on policy more, whether you want to focus on technology innovation more, you can work like as a just from transportation perspective. For example, I could, for example, work with a think tank where I get to work with a lot of companies. I could work with policymakers directly and actually be part of the entire government aspect and entire different government bodies. Might that be transportation department, environment department, could be anything. I could also join uh, any of the e-commerce companies and look at their supply chain related division. I could join any of the goods companies and look at their logistics. So it's like the options are so many these days that you could make, like it could, depending on what companies you join, it could be five figures, six figures,
so I
anything.
mean,
Yeah.
it's quite irrelevant to think about pay without actually knowing and
Yeah.
working towards the specific component in this whole puzzle. uh,
Yeah, and I think
right.
most important thing immediately after graduating is just thinking about what you want to do at that particular point of time. How much is money important? Maybe money is very important to you because you just want to get rid of your student loans.
Yeah,
Sure, then go for that.
yeah.
Maybe for you that understanding the ecosystem better from like the entire perspective is more important. So look for a job where you talk to a lot of stakeholders. Maybe you're really clear about going looking at the financing aspect of sustainability and only environmental finance, then go for any of those options. So really see what exactly you want to do, what is important to you at that particular point of time, and then accordingly take calls.
So, Samita, through your journey, what has it been like to, be in the industry as a woman? And you also have probably the experience of working in India, even though it's a pretty, major, well-known company, and also in the US. So, what has your experience been like?
uh, this industry is still quite male dominated, especially freight sector, which is all about goods movement. and like deliveries and trucking and everything is definitely even more male dominated as compared to passenger transportation. Just if you just look at transportation, which is
Mhm.
anyways not, a very female, it's anyways a male dominated system. I think overall experience has just been like definitely definitely saw that there was relatively so much lesser presence of women in the sustainability world, but it is definitely growing in last few years.
Mhm.
Like I remember 4-ish years ago when, or 3 years ago when I had conducted like a first workshop with almost 100 people on freight transportation and delivery ecosystem. It was just me and one more woman who was there. Like I was hosting the workshop and there was just one participant who was women out of all of the 100 people that were there in the room. That number has increased to 10, 15 now, which is definitely a little bit of growth, but still there are like far ways to go in terms of having that equity. I think what needs to be done in that case is just like organizations have started becoming more and more aware of maintaining, keeping the entire DEI aspect, diversity,
Yeah,
equity, and
yeah, yeah.
inclusion aspect in terms of work. So I think the change is definitely coming from organization, but needs to come from more and more organizations. And at the same time, the change also needs to come from all of the people that are still working, right? Like as somebody who is in this environment, as a woman, as a man, or anyone, I think it is really important to bring the aspects of DEI into their own work culture and the way they are working, and really maintain kind of maintain a neutral environment in terms of how you are working and what your preferences are. So making sure that there are no biases.
Right.
So just being individual steps that one can take are definitely in terms of encouraging and empowering more women to be part of this industry, and also just being mindful of the entire DEI aspect. But definitely have started seeing a positive trend, but still large ways to go.
Yeah, for sure. And most of, I think, the applicants that I've worked with who are interested in sustainability, whether it's energy, whether it's water, they've all been women. So there is definitely a lot of interest, especially in Indian applicants, and like even from a lot of your friends, uh, our batch in Michigan had a lot of women who have
Yeah.
gone on into this field. So, to other applicants who may be wondering about sustainable energy, sustainability, is there a singular piece of advice that you would like to give?
I would just say that spend good chunk of time in deciding uh, what exactly you want to go for. Like number one is just understanding. Sorry, this is not a singular advice, but I think number one, just deciding. Like spend good amount of time in terms of deciding what you want to do, rather than just hurrying up your decision. Because even though you can change your streams at any point of time, if you can pause and really see what you want to do and take a decision, then why not, right? So
Mhm.
I think just spend a lot of time based on just spend just a lot of time on deciding what you want to do, and then spend a lot of time on deciding what universities you want to apply to. And again, as I said before, it's a two-way communication that needs to happen. It's a two-way interest that needs to happen in terms of choosing the university as well. So definitely be picky in terms of all of the universities that you're going to apply to. Really see why you want to go for one university versus the other. What
Yeah.
are the pros and cons? And when you do that much research, that also gets reflected in your application.
Yes.
And that is what universities would see as well. So I think my tips would just be spending time on deciding your major, spending time on deciding universities, and then definitely spending a lot of time on writing a good application. I think especially if you're studying in India, there is so much less emphasis in terms of writing.
Mm.
Most of the entrance exams especially for engineering. Like I gave IIT, JEE, AIEEE, which is all IIT means now, I think. All of those are very quant and knowledge heavy and less about expressing why you're interested. Like nobody asked me why I was interested in chemical engineering, versus it was more like common exam, and I apply, like, like I just did a lot of math, a lot of science, and then depending on my rank I chose a college. It's such a different kind of application system. I wouldn't say it is like better or worse, it's just different. Definitely spending a lot of time on application. If you don't know how to go, how to like how to apply properly, then just go for help. There are so many different opportunities through which, and so many different people that you can ask for help in terms of your application, choosing universities properly. So just really dedicating a lot of time in doing that research, asking for help is like the way to go, I feel.
What about people who are, say, in the first or second year of their masters and wondering about their future?
So I think for people who are already doing masters, and if you're already in the US, chances are really high that you have an option to test things out. You can take at least the way it worked in Michigan was 1/3 of the credits were approximately 1/3 of the credits were compulsory, that you had to take that particular course. Rest of the 1/3 were something that you had to pick from electives. That I could take sustainable finance and would still meet the requirement for sustainability. And like last 1/3 is like you can do whatever you want to do. So I remember, as part of the way I had designed my particular curriculum, was that I took some of the compulsory courses, then took many courses from Ross School and also School of Economics, in terms of getting more knowledge from finance perspective and economics perspective as well. Obviously, I was doing double masters, so I took a lot of courses from College of Engineering. And for the last 1/3 credits, I just took random courses. I took courses in school and on music composition, which was a lot of fun. And I got to meet really cool people over there as well. So you can literally do that if you want to. So if you are doing a course that is completely unrelated to sustainability, you can always take courses. If your school doesn't allow for random courses, then you can still sit in some of the courses and not give an exam. Like professors would always say yes if you're curious about a topic. Or there are always options to do like a additional certification course. I had some friends from chemical to do kind of like a project certification in sustainability, and just took few courses. So you just have so many options that you can really take 2-3 courses, see if you're liking this particular side or not. Just take some courses as electives rather than signing up fully, so that you get a hang of things. Otherwise, internet just and books, just read about it. Like these days it's so easy to take take courses on platforms like Masterclass, Skillshare, or just YouTube is like a pool of knowledge that whether you want to go for one thing versus other might be a sign of laziness, that you haven't done enough research on your end, because most of the things are available these days.
It seems like you got a lot of inspiration and, of course, the technical know-how, skills from the courses that you took. And of course, knowing how our program was, the emphasis on coursework was pretty significant. And even for me, even for the others, courses did help a lot. But going back to thinking about when you were applying to master's programs, or even during your job search phase, internship search phase, is there something that you wish you had known at that point?
I think when in terms of application for masters, I definitely took lots of last minute decisions. Like
Okay.
I usually just do not, like, whenever I chat with anyone, I would say that my example is like the worst case example that I gave my GRE in end of November, and I decided to go for masters in October, which is the worst time possible.
Yeah.
And I remember chatting with my dad and just being like, I don't think I should apply this year. And my dad was, how about we just apply to top 3 universities? Like usually, people would apply for 10 universities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was like, let's just apply for top 3 universities. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, then we always have the next year.
Yes.
Uh, this, I would, I mean, looking back, it all worked out fine, thankfully, but I would just give myself more time in terms of thinking deeper, like
Yes.
maybe that was one of the reasons why I went for such a broad approach after joining University of Michigan, where I was just like trying to figure things out, versus I would have done a lot more research even before applying in terms of whether I want to do water, electricity, transportation. I think just spending good time and application process is something that thankfully worked out, but I would just like, I wish I had done even more.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. I think spending time doing your research always pays off in the long run. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the last question I'd like to end with this question is, or what is your definition of success?
Oh my God.
If you
Nice.
have thought about it, if you have some, some vision of yours that, when I get to this point, I would consider myself successful. So what would that look like for you?
I think I had been thinking about this particular question quite a bit, especially even more recently with pandemic and
Mm,
so many things are happening these days, right? I still haven't been able to come up with a definition for myself, because definition of success keeps on changing. So it's
yeah.
almost like I read a quote which was so much more well said than but it was than how what is there in my mind right now. But I think it was something on the lines that success is like a successive realization of your dreams at that particular instance.
Yes.
So it's like in a very mathematical term, it's integration of so many different derivatives that you have at that particular instance. So definition of success is just keeping on reaching all of the milestones that you have in near term, but at the same time looking at the bigger picture. So I don't think many people think it is money, it is one particular job. I think for me, it just has been for me personally, it is just being able to contribute my existence towards something good, leaving the place better than how it was, and anything that I can do in terms of that. If it is in terms of my work, if it is in terms of um, just any interaction with anyone, I think all counts.
Very well said. It makes a lot of sense. I kind of resonate with that a little bit also. Yeah. So thank you, Samitha. This was a really nice session.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please share this within your network and please subscribe to stay tuned. Thank you.